So we'll be taking a closer look at IRS Notice CP160, which is a reminder from the IRS if you owe taxes for for your tax liability as reported on IRS Form 941. So quick look at that. That's the employer's quarterly federal tax return. So we'll be going over the notice that relates to that. So, and talk about what your options are. So, let's go ahead and start with the upper right hand corner. We have the CP160 notice. The tax period is ending December 31st, 2016. So that would be the fourth quarter of the 2016 tax year. And then the notice date is January 8th, 2018. So I point this out in all of these notice cases because if there is a disagreement, if there's an action that you're requested to take, there's usually a due date or a deadline that may be like 30 days from the notice date. Or usually if you disagree with something in a statement, it would be 60 days from the notice date. So pay particular attention to the notice date. We'll talk about why when we get over to this information over here, the taxpayer address and stuff. So the employer ID number and then a phone number to contact the IRS. So over here, this is for ABC XYZ Trust, 22 Boulder Street in Hanson, Connecticut. So always double check to make sure that your address is correct. If you've recently changed addresses, you can update your address by filing your tax return. But if you're in between tax returns, you can also call the IRS. If you were going to call to dispute your charges, you can change your address over the phone while you're talking to the representative. Or you can file IRS Form 8822. That's for individual taxpayers. The appropriate form in this case, in the case of an employer, would be IRS Form 8822-B, which is the change of address form for business owners. So we'll put links in the show notes to any articles and videos that we've created about any tax form that we discuss in this video. So, based on the notice date, let's imagine that you didn't change your address and it takes 2 weeks for IRS correspondence to catch up to you. To the IRS, it does not matter. Their actions will be based on what the notice date was, which usually is the date that it runs off their printer and gets put into the mail. So if it takes 2 weeks to catch up to you, that's 2 weeks less time that you have to take whatever the appropriate action would be for that particular situation. So that's why I always stress, keep your address up to date and pay attention to your notice date on your notice. So let's take a further look at this. So this is for the 2016, the quarterly period ending December 31st. So that would be October, November, and December. So this is the billing summary, how much taxes you owe, the interest that's accrued, and then a failure to pay penalty. So if you're working with an IRS representative to address your tax issue, you don't need to do anything. This usually is a notice that can be automatically sent out even if you're working with with an IRS employee. So if you're already doing that, you don't need to do anything special about the notice. If you're going to submit payment and you don't use the IRS website or the Treasury Department electronic funds transfer system, then you would submit a check or a money order by mail, and you can do that by making that check or money order payable to the U.S. Treasury, United States Treasury. In this case, you would write your employer ID number, the tax period, which is December 31st, 2016. In this case, for a quarterly return, do not just put the tax year, put the actual period ended. So whether that's June 30th, whether that's September 30th, or December 31st in this case, and then the form number. So when you do send that in the mail, you might be tempted to send it to the address up here. I would always encourage you to default to this. In this case, it looks very similar. It's P.O. Box 9941, the IRS Center in Ogden, Utah. I have seen IRS notices where the address on the payment voucher is a completely different location than the address in the letterhead. So always defer to whatever is in the payment voucher if you're going to send payment or any written correspondence to the IRS. So on the following page, it basically just kind of walks you through what your payment options are. You can set up an installment agreement online. You can file IRS Form 9465 to request an installment agreement. You can pay by credit card or electronic funds withdrawal, or the government's electronic federal tax payment system, EFTPS. So you would need to pay this by, in this case, this is 3 weeks from the notice date to avoid any additional penalties and interest. You can call the 800 number to go over your account. It would be a good idea to have as much of your account information as possible. So if you need to, you can pull up your tax transcript. You can do that online if you have an IRS website account, or you can also file IRS Form 4506-T to request a copy of your tax transcript. However, if you do that, just keep in mind you still have this timeline that you need to go by. So that request may not be processed in time for you to settle this particular issue. So the IRS basically says if they don't hear from you, they're going to continue accruing interest and penalties on your account as allowed and required by federal law. They will send you annual reminders of your balance due until the statute of limitations has expired. You may go into, tax lien territory. Usually the IRS will try to give you a notice of a federal tax lien, and then if that doesn't work, then a tax levy, which is where assets are actually seized, whether it's financial or personal property. So there's a breakdown of the failure to pay penalty, how that is calculated. Again, contact information if you want. You can request a penalty abatement by filing IRS Form 843, particularly if this is a first-time offense. The IRS actually has a program called First Time Abate. If you have reasonable cause, or if you relied on erroneous written advice from the IRS. However, that advice has to have been advice that you specifically wrote to the IRS to get advice on a particular issue. You gave the IRS all of the relevant information, which was sufficient and accurate. The IRS gave you a written statement with advice in it, and that you actually used to implement in your tax reporting, and then the IRS turned around and penalized you for that. You can request an abatement of that penalty. So the IRS, this is the disclosure that basically states that they're required to charge interest when you don't pay on time. This is interest that's on the tax as well as penalties. If the IRS abates a penalty, then they will go ahead and recalculate the interest as if the penalty never was applied. So in this case, you can see the different periods where the interest is calculated. So, at one point the interest rate was 8%, and then it kind of went down to 5%, back up to 6%. Now it's at 5% again. So, and that is for, interesting. So This is all interest that was accumulated, and it shows the tax periods as if this was going back to 2007, 2008. So, this is kind of an outlier. I would expect to see relevant tax periods and the interest reporting in this. So this probably wouldn't be an actual notice. You would see if this was the tax period for 2000, ending in December of 2016, you would expect to see periods that reflect that time frame. So call it 2017 or 2018. So there's some additional information about resources that the IRS has. I'm going to zoom in on this particular link just to see if there's anything there. And in this case, generally speaking, the IRS does a pretty good job. If there's a link in their CP notices, that link usually goes to a good page on the IRS website. However, usually those pages don't really contain a whole lot of additional information that you don't already have access to in your notice. So in this particular case, if you had a question and you couldn't figure out the answer from your notice or prior correspondence, you would probably need to call the IRS to get a better handle on that situation. So again, this is a notice, that's telling people to pay taxes based on their Form 941. So, and that's all we have for this tax notice. So we'll put links in the show notes to all the resources, the relevant articles and videos for the forms that we mentioned here. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's something that you would like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.